Okay, sorry for the mix-up. If you were following along live, I was having some technical issues. So today, what I'm going to go over for this review. What I'm going to go over for this particular review session is the bullet 3 on your 1450 to 1715 packet. So this should be the packet or the part of the packet that says early modern state. Okay, so basically just what I want to do is do a quick rundown of all of the structure of the European states around 1648. So that's kind of what we'll be looking at now. So first of all, we have France. So just kind of remember, this is coming off the cusp of the Middle Ages, Renaissance, Reformation era, the beginning of the new states in Europe. So the beginning of the modern nation state, essentially. So the first one that we have is France. So France is very slowly becoming, rising into a royal absolute monarchy, as we know. The names that you need to know here are Louis XIII and Cardinal Richelieu. So Richelieu pretty much controlled Louis XIII and his ability to take control of the country. So economically, they are in the very early stages of the mercantilism kind of economic policies. What we're going to see is that they are developing guild towns and trade, putting kind of up trade barriers so that they don't really have to depend on other countries as much. So trying to encourage domestic production. Okay. In terms of the social system of France by 1648, France is very much entwined in the three estate system. So the nobility, the clergy, and everybody else, with the nobility and the clergy having the majority of the control in the French government. And religiously, France is and will remain until the revolution very, very, very Catholic. Right? Catholicism is the state religion of France. It's going to be the one that is in kind of the main control. There is a Huguenot minority, but the Huguenots are not really able to gain much political power. So a state Catholic church with a Huguenot minority is pretty much what we're looking at here. Next, we have Spain. So Spain is a hard and fast centralized monarchy. Right, we have the Habsburg Spanish on the throne of Spain, so the descendants of Charles V. Right, their economy by 1648 is beginning to be a bit depressed from some of the inflation coming out of the Spanish colonies in the New World. There is an influx of silver, and so the economy is starting to get a little bit shaky. This is kind of the end of the Spanish golden age, right? So we're kind of seeing that Spain is kind of in the middle of a decline a little bit. In terms of their social structure, they have a very rigid social class system. It is not an estate system like we have in France. However, people kind of are put into their place, and they definitely know where they're supposed to be, with the nobility kind of the ones running the show. The nobility is the one that's pretty much in charge. So that's Spain for you. Next, we have England. So we are seeing in England the end of Queen Elizabeth's rule politically. So Queen Elizabeth has just united the people of Great Britain for the first time since the War of the Roses. However, the Stuart monarchy is starting to come into power, and we're starting to see some of the cracks between the Stuart monarchy and Parliament. So there is definitely some conflict going on between the Stuarts and the Parliament in England. Now, they do, this is kind of the beginning of England's strength in colonies overseas. So they do have some colonial activity in North America particularly, as well as getting ready to get into Canada a little bit. So they're still in control of the North American colonies at this point. Socially, there is a very heavy struggle between the landed gentry and the merchant class. This is a struggle that is going to last for quite some time, but they are basically kind of fighting on who is going to be the one in control. You know, the aristocracy, the nobility, they have the title, but the merchant class has the wealth. So we're seeing kind of the butting heads between the merchant class and the aristocracy in England, and that's going to kind of break out with the English Civil War. So next we have the religious conflict, which is going to mostly be a conflict between the Anglican Church, so the Church of England that was established by Henry VIII, and the Puritans. So Puritanism is starting to become a really big thing in England at this time. They're starting to get power in Parliament and get power in the merchant class. So the merchant class are going to be mostly English, or there are going to be a good number of Puritans in the merchant class in England. And so we're seeing some conflict between that. Puritans are going to start hightailing it out of the country, ending up in North America, as we kind of looked at a little bit before. So that's what we have there. In Holland, everything is about the VOC, the East India Trading Company, right? They are pretty much in control of everything. Politically, it is a merchant oligarchy in control of the Netherlands, right? So Holland is in the Netherlands, the Dutch Republic, right? So in Holland, we are going to see the VOC really being the main control of the government there, even though they have kind of their own princes. The House of Orange is the main political house in Holland. In terms of economically, these guys are the economic center of the world in 1648. Money is coming in and out of Holland. They are doing very well for themselves. They've set up a stock market. They've set up a national bank. They're going to be kind of the ones that ends up lending money to a lot of these other European countries. So they are the economic, monetary center of the world. Socially, the middle class, the bourgeoisie, is incredibly important in the Netherlands and the Dutch Republic. The merchant class is the one that kind of controls everything. Think about what we saw in the film that we watched. That's all a merchant class sort of deal. And they're going to be the ones with the most wealth as well. In terms of religion, they are mostly Puritan, mostly Calvinist. However, we do have a very strong religious tolerance in Holland that we don't see in other parts of Europe at the time. So things like the Jews, for example, have some religious tolerance in Holland. So that's going to be a big part of what's going on there. So mostly Calvinist, mostly Reformed Protestantism, but also incredibly religious tolerance. And finally, of course, we have the good old HRE, the Holy Roman Empire. And so politically, we still have the Holy Roman Empire as 300 plus separate sovereign states. And the Holy Roman Emperor himself is a figurehead, right? Like this guy is in charge in name, but doesn't have as much political power. The states are able to kind of run themselves domestically. When there is an issue that comes up, the Holy Roman Emperor can kind of lead war, but for the most part, he's basically a figurehead. Economically, there's still a predominantly agricultural economy in the Holy Roman Empire. There are a few commercial centers here and there, but for the most part, because they're not united, they can't be economically very strong. In terms of the social classes, there is basically a strict division between the nobility and the peasants, okay? There's still a good number of serfs in the Holy Roman Empire at this time. And in fact, in some parts of the Holy Roman Empire, serfs are around for another 100 years. So that's a pretty big deal. In terms of religion, we have huge religious conflict. Right, this is the center of the Protestant Reformation. It's where the Peace of Augsburg took place. And essentially what we're seeing is about half the country is Catholic and the other half is Lutheran or Calvin, right? And so the Holy Roman Emperor is really, or Empire, is really a source of religious conflict during the 1600s. Mostly due to the Protestant Reformation. And of course, that is what's going to lead to the 30 Years' War. And that's going to be kind of the major cause of that conflict. So as you're moving into the 1700s, this is the point where we've got about half the nations in Europe going under a decline and half of them coming into power. So I gave an acronym HOP-RAP. So HOP refers to the three declining states in Europe, the Holy Roman Empire, the Ottoman Empire, and Poland. RAP refers to the rising states in Central Europe. So that would be Russia, Austria, and Prussia. So let's look at those here pretty quickly. So first we've got the Ottoman Empire. So the Ottoman Empire is incredibly corrupt. And the corruption really is in all branches of the Ottoman government. The sultans, which is the name of the leader of the Ottoman Empire, are pretty ineffectual. They're not really able to maintain a lot of good control. They're pretty incompetent. So you've got some ineffective leaders. The empire depends on tribute from their colonies and from people who are passing through the Mediterranean Sea, but they don't really have anybody who's loyal to them. And that with the age of exploration and the new kind of colonies in southern Africa and new ways to get to the Indian Ocean, they're losing some of that tribute in the Mediterranean. So the Ottoman Empire is economically and politically really going into a period of decline here. Then we've got Poland, poor Poland. So their monarchy is just, I mean, can't control anything. The nobles control the monarchy. There's nobody keeping the nobility in check. The monarchy is, I saw it somewhere, emasculated, right? So if you think about that, basically they're being proven that they absolutely have no power at all. They're extremely feudal. The feudal system is still very strong in Poland. There is absolutely no middle class. There is a nobility and there is a serf class, and there's nothing in between. So economically, Poland has nothing. And essentially what we're seeing in Poland is that that's going to make them heavily susceptible to being taken over until it's partitioned 3 different times by 3 different countries, because they can, right? Poland, yay. Oh, poor Poland. I feel bad for Poland. And then finally, we've got the Holy Roman Empire. So I mentioned this a little bit before, but essentially the 30 Years' War is just a devastating thing for the Holy Roman Empire. It destroys the countryside. It destroys the economies of the 2 countries. I mean, really, it's a bad state, and it's mostly because of these religious wars. The 30 Years' War does, as we know, put an end to the conflicts, the religious war conflicts in the Holy Roman Empire, but the Holy Roman Empire is on its way out, right, as a empire. Now, some German states are on their way in, but the HRE as a one solid empire, I mean, this is the beginning of the end for it. Another 100 years, it's gone completely, right? So the next one we have are the rising states. So these are those 2 German states I mentioned a minute ago that are coming out of the HRE and really starting to form their own kind of strong governments. And that is, of course, Austria and Prussia. So Austria, we all know who rules them, the Habsburgs, right? So they consolidate the lands of Austria into a kind of hereditary power, and they are working their way on up. Remember, Austria is the Catholic power, right? So keep that one in mind. Then next we have Prussia. So Prussia is definitely ruled by some very capable leaders. So you think Frederick the Great Elector, guys like that, who are able to build up an incredibly strong state around an incredibly strong army. Their big thing is militarism. In fact, that's always going to be Germany's big thing. And this is pre-Germany. Prussia is pre-Germany, right? And so their big thing is building up the military. So we've got Frederick William, we've got, Frederick the Great, right? All of these guys who are working towards building up Prussia as a military power, making some reforms. These are where our enlightened despots are going to be in Austria and Prussia, Central Europe. So this is a big deal. And then, of course, we finally have good old Russia. So Russia, remember, they're always 2 steps behind the rest of Western Europe. And they are just starting westernization under Peter the Great and Catherine the Great. They're gaining a port on the Black Sea, right? They've gone to war with Sweden, and they are able to make some incredible strides. Peter visits the rest of Europe and brings a lot of this new learning back to Russia, builds St. Petersburg, that's pretty important, and is able to organize the government of Russia into kind of a civil service and begins that modernization process of Russia here. So that's where I want to kind of wrap up today. Like I said, I know it was a little short, but I basically just wanted to give you a good rundown on where these states are as we're moving into this era of absolutism and constitutionalism. So after spring break is when I will hit the next part. Okay, so we'll be looking at the English Civil War and the Glorious Revolution and going into kind of modern France and everything else. So what you need to do between now and then, you need to go ahead and print out the packet for the next set of review sessions. So that's 1750 to 1870. Okay, that packet is on my website. I actually am planning on hitting some of it in the next review session, so you need to have it before then. Again, that next review session is going to be next Saturday at 5 p.m., not this Saturday, next Saturday, the Saturday after spring break, basically when I get back from Florida, right? And so make sure by next Saturday you have printed out that next packet, and we will get into kind of the beginning of modern Europe. Until then, are there any questions? All right, well, if there are no questions, which it doesn't look like, then I'm going to go ahead and wrap everything up here. Guys, have a great evening. If you're watching this later, have a great whatever time of day it is for you. And please remember that you can always come see me in my classroom if you have any questions, and I will see you soon. Bye.